Hello, everyone. We're just waiting a couple of minutes to the top of the hour and then we'll get started. Thanks for joining us. Okay, I think that's on the hour. So we'll get started. Thank you all for joining us today. Good afternoon. You're joining an introduction to Cambridge IGCSE Japanese 0716. Welcome. It's great to have everyone here. We're really excited to be talking to people about this qualification. So thank you for your time. We'll be guiding you through this session. I'll do some brief introductions and then I'll talk through who we have here and the plan for the next hour. My name is Faye Head. I'm the Head of Arts and Languages in Qualifications and Test Development here at Cambridge. And I'm also joined by my colleague Ayaku Tawatari, who will be presenting with me. So Ayaku, if you'd like to give a little wave.
Yes. Welcome to our webinar.
Thanks, Ayaku. Welcome. We're also joined by our Japanese subject expert, Lydia Mori, who will be available to answer some questions, and our Japanese assessment manager, Sarah Leyland, who's also available to answer some questions as well. So good morning, colleagues. We have 1 hour, and if we could have the next slide, please. I just want to talk through some quick protocols for the webinar. So microphones are turned off for everyone except presenters. If you do have questions, if you could pop those into the Zoom chat, that would be great. And we'll have 10 to 15 minutes at the end to answer as many questions as possible. We have received all of the questions that you submitted when you registered for the webinar, and we'll try and answer as many of those as we go through. If you do still have questions, then please do pop them in the chat. And between myself, Ayaku, Lydia and Sarah, we'll be answering those questions towards the end. So please do start having conversations in the chat there. After this session, we'll also be making the recording of this webinar available on the Cambridge School Support Hub. We'll be making the slides available, and we'll also produce a question and answer document that covers all of the questions that we've been asked in this session. And if we don't quite get round to covering all of the questions at the end, then we'll cover them in that document. So if we don't get to your question, if there is quite a lot and we don't quite get to you, we will answer it in a published document, and we'll let everyone know when that's available. Next slide, please. So what we're doing in the next hour, we're exploring the content and assessment of Cambridge IGCSE Japanese 0716. We'll be signposting you to some high quality teaching support materials, including planned professional development, and some training for the new syllabus. And we'll be discussing, Ayaku will be taking us through the recognition and progression opportunities that this syllabus makes available to your students and your centres. So that's what we're planning to cover. Next slide, please. I'd just like to give a very quick, before we move on to talking specifically about Japanese, a quick introduction to the Cambridge pathway. You may be familiar with this. So we now offer courses and qualifications from ages 3 to ages 19. You can see the pathway there. We have a new modern foreign language primary and lower secondary curriculum, which leads nicely into our upper secondary curriculum, which you can see there in orange, where the new IGCSE Japanese 0716 sits in that orange section. So that's primarily for students aged 14 to 16 to study. So that's where it sits. It also the Japanese sits within a suite of modern foreign languages, a pre-existing suite of modern foreign languages, which include French, German, Spanish, Italian, Malay, Arabic, and Chinese. So it's in good company. Next slide, please. At Cambridge, we offer over 30 languages, which cover foreign, second, first, and advanced language levels. We take an evidence-based approach to curriculum and assessment design. So the skills covered at each of those levels are designed specifically for learners who are at that level. So at the foreign language level, and I'll talk more about that as we go through, that Japanese is pitched at. You'll see across all of our foreign language qualifications, we do have speaking and listening as a key skill for communication, which was one of the aims of the syllabus. As we move further up into the first, second and advanced levels, you'll see less speaking and listening and more sort of focus on reading, writing and potentially literature. So skills tailored to the particular level of language learning. All of our syllabuses are built around real world situations, and at the modern foreign language level, it's about communicating in the real world. So that's a really important feature of all of our modern foreign language syllabuses. We adopt a clear and simple assessment structure with a focus on accessibility. So you'll see later when we look at some of the questions within the question papers for Japanese, all of our rubric within question papers is in the target language, it's in Japanese. The reason for that is because we don't want to assume that candidates have a shared third language. You may be familiar with qualifications where English is used as a medium for questions and instructions and rubric. We prefer not to do that, so we provide simple target language instructions and questions, because there is an understanding that the students will be familiar at least with the target language that they're studying and being assessed in. We also build accessibility into the design, so there'll be pictorial questions to avoid having to read too much when it's not being assessed. So there are some key features of our approach to language learning. All of our syllabuses are mapped to international standards and recognised by universities globally. So that's a really key feature of our entire languages suite. Next slide, please. So moving on specifically to Japanese, it is, as I said at the beginning, we're really excited to be introducing it. We have had IGCSE Japanese qualifications in the past, in the quite recent past. We feel that this one really covers the needs of teachers and learners, what we've been told that teachers and learners need from us. So it builds on what people like from our previous versions of Japanese syllabuses, but it also introduces some of the great features that we have in our wider modern foreign language suite. So the syllabus is now available. You can begin teaching it whenever you would like. It's designed as a 2-year pathway. So it's primarily designed for, as I said, 14 to 16, so approximately 130 guided learning hours. So in that sense, and over a 2-year period, it would be first teaching in September 2025 if you are following a 2-year course. It would be, the first assessment is in 2027, so the June series in 2027. It's designed for students learning Japanese as a foreign language, and that was a question that came up quite a lot in the pre-submitted questions before the webinar. Although it's called IGCSE Japanese, which is a feature again of our modern foreign language qualifications, it is designed for foreign language learners. That doesn't mean to say that other students with prior knowledge of the language can't take it. They can, but it's designed to be accessible to students who have never encountered Japanese before. So that's the language level, and I'll talk more about the level in terms of CEFR and things like that later in the webinar. And the reason we've introduced a foreign language qualification, so there were some questions again submitted around, you know, why foreign language. Ayaku will speak a bit more to this when we come on to the recognition side of things, but we were told that was most useful for as many learners as possible in accessing the sorts of places they might want to go with their Japanese qualification. Next slide, please. So the next 2 slides are taken directly from the syllabus, so I won't go through them in detail because you can read them for yourselves. I just want to pull out some key features of why you might want to choose IGCSE Japanese with Cambridge. So that first sentence I think is key. It's a set of transferable skills for understanding and communicating in everyday situations. It's designed to provide communication skills. The other key feature is around cultural awareness, cultural and contextual awareness. So that will come up repeatedly throughout this webinar, that those are the two strands of language learning that we really focus on. So at this level, it's an appreciation of the target context, so in this case, Japan and the Japanese language, and also an interest and basic skills in Japanese language learning. You can see there the words in bold. Those are our Cambridge Learner attributes, and they're included in every single Cambridge syllabus: confident, responsible, reflective, innovative, and engaged. And then the descriptions there show how this syllabus is tailored to the Japanese, the acquisition of Japanese language. So those are our Cambridge Learner attributes and how this syllabus helps students to attain those attributes. Next slide, please. So here we have the syllabus aims. So everything within the syllabus, the content and the assessment, is based on these aims. This is what students will gain from the study of a course that uses this syllabus as its base. The first bullet there is really important in terms of level. So this syllabus, or studying a course that follows this syllabus, will enable students to develop the language proficiency required to communicate in Japanese at level A2 of the CEFR, the Common European Framework for Reference for Languages, and elements of B1. And there is some alignment there to the JLPT, the Japanese Language Proficiency Test. So A2 broadly aligns to N4 on the JLPT. And Ayaku will talk a little bit more about how that might help with admissions to Japanese universities. So we have designed the syllabus to align with levels A2 and B1 of the CEFR. And that's the same across all of our modern foreign languages. So we have consistency across all of our target languages at this level. Again, I won't read through, but I'll just point to some of the references to both understanding of culture and context and the understanding of language. So within these aims, we have reference to culture, society, community, positive attitudes, a sympathetic approach, enjoyment, and an intellectual stimulation. So there's some broad concepts around an understanding and appreciation of context and culture, and there's also a focus on language proficiency, the nature of language learning and skills development. So there's two strands really running through the whole of the syllabus. Next slide, please. So within the syllabus, there are five main topic areas listed as content. The content itself is not prescriptive, so we don't say how you should teach this. We don't tell you that it should be taught in any one particular way. We do provide support, which I'll talk about later on, which gives you guidance as to how you might teach it. But one of the benefits is that you can teach it in a way that works best for your students. So we have broad areas we have broad topic areas and broad areas of content, as opposed to teach this at Unit 1 and this at Unit 2. Again, those topic areas are shared across all of our modern foreign language syllabuses for consistency, and they're designed to allow students to communicate in everyday situations. A student coming out with a certificate with Cambridge IGCSE Japanese will be able to communicate on these topics at a basic user and a proficient user level. So we have everyday activities, personal and social life, the world around us, the world of work, and the international world. Within the syllabus itself, we do go into more detail. So there's a breakdown of subtopics. So under everyday activities, there's things such as cooking, shopping, and sort of subtopics to give you a bit of a framework of what exactly students might study within that topic area. There's also a grammar and kanji list within the syllabus, which shows you the sort of grammar structures and the kanji that students should be familiar with in the Japanese language when preparing for the assessment. So we provide that level of scaffolding for you to make sure that we are fully preparing students to access the assessment material. We also, and I'll show this later on in the webinar, we have a searchable vocabulary list that's linked to those topic areas, and that's a teaching tool for you. It's not a list that students have to learn, but it is a list that might help you frame your teaching. So we'll look at that as well at a later point. Next slide, please. So we've talked about the content. This is an overview of the assessment. So IGCSE Japanese is split into 4 components or 4 papers, and each of them tests a different assessment objective. So assessment objective 1 is listening. Paper 1 tests just listening. Assessment objective 2 tests reading, and we will assess just the reading skills. AO3 is speaking and assesses just the student's speaking skills. And AO4 is writing, and again, assesses just that skill. All of these are equally weighted. So listening, reading, speaking, and writing are all given the same weighting within the assessment. There's a few reasons for that. It's partly so that we deliver that students who have skills at different levels for different assessment objectives can excel. So if they're particularly good at speaking and listening, there's an opportunity for them to excel in those areas. It also allows us to make sure that we're testing exactly what we say we're testing. So we're not accidentally testing something that we shouldn't be in the wrong place. We're also ensuring that we're covering all of those areas of the communication that students are required to have to be able to say that they can communicate in the target language. All of these papers are compulsory, so students should sit all of these papers. We've designed it to have a really manageable assessment duration, so 50 minutes for listening, 1 hour for reading, 10 minutes for speaking, and 1 hour and 15 minutes for writing. So that's been tested through our existing modern foreign language qualifications to make sure that we're giving students enough time to demonstrate their skills, but not too much time that they that it becomes overburdened and that the assessment is too strenuous. And the same with the marks and the mark schemes. They've been tried and tested through our existing modern foreign language qualifications to make sure that they are right and that the question types are right to assess these particular skills. We do have specimen papers and mark schemes that you can access now on the School Support Hub, and when this, you can either look yourself or when this slideshow is available, there's a link there as well to the specimen papers and mark schemes, so you can see the sorts of things that these papers are testing. But the key thing I think to pull out here is that we have full coverage of the skills that you would want your candidates to demonstrate at this level. Next slide, please. So I'm just briefly going to talk through each of the papers and assessment objectives, and then show you an example of the types of questions that are included within the specimen paper and that will be included within the live papers from 2027 onwards. So assessment objective 1 and paper 1, listening. The assessment objectives are listed there for you. So there are 4 sub-assessment objectives. And again, all are tailored towards providing real life listening skills. So candidates are able to take in information, understand it, process it, and use that in real world situations to hold a conversation with someone. And all of our questions within our specimen papers and our live papers are tailored to those assessment objectives to make sure we're testing what we say we're testing. So paper 1 is 50 minutes, 40 marks, and 25% of the overall assessment total. Candidates will listen to a number of recordings. Some of them are very short, some of them are slightly longer, and they then answer multiple choice and matching questions. So they're not required to write anything in Japanese in this paper for the reasons I explained earlier. We're not assessing writing, so we don't require them to write in this format. It's multiple choice or they are matching options. Everything here is designed to build on the sorts of things that you would be practicing in class. So again, having real conversations with peers, and all the questions are linked to one of the topic areas listed in the syllabus, so that you have a framework of teaching a particular topic and things won't be too unfamiliar. We take a real balanced approach across all of our components to make sure that students are seeing familiar contexts. So you'll see the word familiar topics there, simple text, predictable text. So there is familiarity, and then it'll also be authentic spoken text, text that is authentic to Japanese context as well. So that's really important. If we can move to the next slide, there's just an example of the types of questions. So it's not to sort of, yeah, if we could move to the next slide, please. So we're not going to look through these in detail. It's just to give you an idea of the sorts of questions. So the first question there on the left, that is at the very start of the paper, where we're targeting students who are maybe working at the lower end of the mark range. And then you have one of the questions towards the end, or moving towards the end of the paper. So you can see the range of demand and the range of question types that are asked. So we won't spend too long on that, but these are specimen paper questions. So you can have a look at the specimen paper to get an idea of the types of tasks that will be asked. Next slide, please. Assessment objective and paper 2 is focused on reading skills and again, reflecting the types of activities and skills that you will be building in the classroom. You might notice that the sub-assessment objectives, R1, R2, R3, and R4 are very similar to listening. And again, that is a recognition that these are receptive skills that candidates are expected to take in information and understand it and find out what that means. So we have very similar assessment objectives for both listening and reading. Familiarity is key. So all of the questions will be linked to the topics in the syllabus again. There shouldn't be anything that is unfamiliar to students, but the text will all be authentic to a Japanese context as well, so that they will make sure that they are covering that area of the syllabus that deals with culture and context. The paper itself is 1 hour. It's worth 40 marks. There is a mixture in this paper of multiple choice and matching questions, as well as some short answer questions. And that is just to make sure that the short answer questions are to make sure that we're assessing that R3 and R4. So understanding ideas and opinions, and really trying to pin down if the students have understood what they're reading. So there is some short answers required, either single word or very short phrase responses. And again, you can have a look at the specimen papers and the specimen mark schemes for examples of the types of questions you might be asked. We do have two to look at. So next slide, please. So again, we have a question from the start of the reading specimen question paper. And we have a question from the end of the reading specimen paper. So it starts off with picture images to get students into what they're looking at, and then it moves on to more dense text, again, authentic to Japanese contexts. And you can see these questions in the specimen paper. Next slide, please. So assessment objective in paper 3 is speaking. Again, reflecting the sorts of practice you'll be having in class with your speaking and listening exercises and activities. The focus again is on predictable situations and familiar situations. It's making sure that students have the vocabulary and the knowledge and the grammar structures to actually respond, and it can hold a conversation. So the assessment is tailored to, can the student communicate effectively in a back and forth conversation? The student is expected to undertake a 10-minute speaking test. That happens in centre. So we would be asking you as a teacher or as an examiner to hold that speaking test within your centre. If you take any of our other modern foreign languages, you'll be familiar with that format. Each student will have an individual 10-minute speaking test, and that is marked by the teacher or the examiner in centre, and then is externally moderated by Cambridge. So we would request a sample of your recordings and a sample of your marking notes and your marks, and we would take that and we would just do some external moderation to make sure that we have a shared understanding of the marking descriptors and the level. The speaking again is worth 25% of the overall assessment at 40 marks in total. And the tasks that students complete, if I could have the next slide, please. So they have one role play, and they are given so the students are given a candidate card. The teacher themselves has a script to follow. And in the first instance, they undertake a role play. So they respond to 5 transactional questions, and it might be about trying to buy something. It might be about trying to get a particular task done. And that's quite short. That's 2 minutes of that role play, where you will have a set list of questions that you will ask the candidates and they will be expected to respond. There's then 2 topic conversations. So they will be held by the teacher or examiner, and the candidate will respond to questions on each of those topics. And those topics, again, will fall within the topics listed in the syllabus. So you will have been able to prepare your students for what might come up and with the sorts of vocabulary that they might need to hold that conversation. And each of those topic conversations will be 4 minutes. Again, the focus in that last bullet point is on predictability, everyday context, and context that will be useful for students in real world situations, buying things, speaking to teachers, maybe filling in forms, it's that sort of thing. So always based on real world situations. There's lots of support available for conducting the speaking tests on the School Support Hub, and ahead of each assessment, teachers and examiners receive a guidance document along with the candidate task cards and the teacher notes. So you were given lots of support on that. Next slide, please. Finally, we have assessment objective and paper 4, which is writing. We have slightly different sub-assessment objectives here because it's quite a unique skill. But again, the focus on familiarity and on real world situations. So slightly more marks available here. This is marked in a levels-based way. So there is a level-based mark scheme that examiners will apply to candidates' written work. They have 1 hour and 15 minutes, which is tailored to Japanese because there's an understanding that the character-based nature of it might not be so familiar. It might be very familiar. So there's 1 hour and 15 minutes, 45 marks, and within that time, candidates complete 3 written tasks. So the first is they fill in a form printed in the question paper, so it's single word or short phrase responses. They then answer a directed writing task where they're given a particular task. They have to respond in 160 to 180 characters on a familiar topic, such as where do you live? What's your school like, something like that. So again, they'll have prepared that based on the topic areas that we talked about earlier. The final question is worth 28 marks, and candidates have a choice of 2 questions, again on a familiar topic. It might be something like it might be around writing a short article. It might be around writing a short blog. So it's essentially it's intended again to reflect real world situations. That question is worth 28 marks. Candidates are expected to write 250 to 300 characters. Sorry, I've just lost my notes. And they're being marked on 3 things. So that's task completion, the range of vocabulary and grammar structures they're using, and the accuracy that they're applying to that particular writing. So in that final question, they're being assessed across the full range of assessment objectives. Next slide, please. So again, just to give you an example, the question on the left is the directed writing task. That's the 12-mark question where they're given prompts to respond to something quite familiar. And on the right is an example of one of the 2 optional questions that they'll be asked to answer for 28 marks at the end. Again, there's prompts there to support them in exactly what they might want to cover within this particular paper. Next slide, please. So I realise that's quite quick and that there's lots to take in. All of that information is available on the School Support Hub, in the syllabus document and the specimen papers. I'll now talk briefly about the support available to teachers and to students on our School Support Hub and the things that are coming up. Next slide, please. I've already mentioned that alongside the syllabus, we have published a searchable vocabulary list. So this is an Excel document that can be viewed online or can be downloaded so that you can tailor it to your particular needs. You can personalize it, you can move things around. You can use it in any way that's useful for you. The vocabulary on this list is organised by syllabus topics and subtopics. So you can see there, we've clicked on the tab for everyday activities, and then on the right-hand side, we have a list of all the subtopics that come under that and the types of vocabulary that students may need to cover. You can also, when you're planning your teaching, you can search and filter when you're doing your lesson and your unit planning. It's important to say with this list that it's not exhaustive, that it won't list everything, all of the vocabulary that students might come across in the assessment. It's designed to provide a support for the sorts of vocabulary you might cover. It's also important to say that in that middle kanji column, that is purely for teachers to be able to search the lists in a more helpful way. Students don't need to learn that kanji. There's a list in the syllabus of the kanji that they should be familiar with. They're not expected to know the kanji listed in this vocabulary list. That vocabulary list is primarily for planning purposes, but we've been told through feedback that it's really useful in helping to structure some of those lesson plans around particular topics and subtopics. Next slide, please. Alongside that, we also have existing resources and upcoming resources. So hopefully everyone's familiar with the Cambridge School Support Hub, and there's a link there if you're not familiar with it. On there, we will soon have a scheme of work that you can use to plan your teaching. You don't have to use it. It's entirely up to you. It's a suggested way in which you might teach a course that's linked to this syllabus and prepare students for this assessment. We will have some specimen paper answers, and what they provide is before first assessment, teachers want to see examples of student responses. Well, what does that look like? What does the paper 4 28-mark question, what do student responses look like? So we provide a specimen paper answer or a set of specimen paper answers that are designed to look like a student response to help you think about exactly what we're expecting of students. Alongside that, there'll be a learner guide for your students to work through by themselves. And after first assessment in 2027, we also publish example candidate responses. So we take real student responses and we publish them to help teachers understand the level of demand and make sure that everyone's comfortable with what's being expected of students. Already available on the School Support Hub, in that bottom list, you can see there's lesson planning advice. There's advice on listening skills and listening test support. There's some support on speaking activities and how to conduct the speaking tests. We're hoping to provide a video of an example speaking test in a real context, and that should be available soon. Writing skills support and teaching tools. So all of these things are available in one place for you to access to support you in your teaching of 0716. Next slide, please. And then lastly, professional development, so training. A virtual introduction course will be available in September. And you can register your interest for that now via our professional development calendar. So there's a link there. You can also find that on the public website. Excuse me. So I would advise you to go and have a look at that training and support. We've also been asked about examining opportunities. First assessment is in 2027. We will absolutely want examiner support. We don't yet have an advert up for examiners specifically for Japanese. That's planned for 2026, but you can sign up now for alerts and to apply to become an examiner and give some information about how to become an assessment specialist through the link there. So if you're interested in that, if you'd like to be involved in the assessment, I would advise you to take a look at that ahead of the advert being posted in 2026. Next slide, please. And that's all from me. I'm going to pass over to Ayaki now. Thanks, Ayaki.
Thank you, Faye. Hello, my name is Ayako Toatari, and I'm Country Manager Japan for International Education based in Tokyo. I'll introduce the benefits of Cambridge IGCSE Japanese for international students considering studying in Japan. When we conducted a survey about IGCSE Japanese, before the launch, we asked Cambridge International Schools how IGCSE Japanese would benefit your students. Some schools have answered that at the ages of 14 or 15, some students are still wondering about their future and which study destination they would like to go. The IGCSE Japanese course would help these students experience the basics of the Japanese language and taste its culture before deciding on their study abroad destination. Some other schools have told us that by offering IGCSE Japanese, they could add a balance, adding a humanities choice to their whole curriculum, which would be valued by universities of other destinations too. Lastly, many schools expect that IGCSE Japanese would open doors for students to applying to Japanese universities. So in the following slides, I would like to focus on how Japanese universities are welcoming international students and how Cambridge qualifications, including IGCSE Japanese, would help your students progress to Japanese universities. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, this was a slide that I was just talked about. Next slide, please. Japan has one of the best higher education systems in the world. So the country rapidly grew from an underdeveloped nation to one of the leading economic powers in the world because of the advanced knowledge and technology fostered by its excellent universities. More recently, Japan has become one of the most attractive study destinations for international students. There are currently more than 210,000 international students in Japan, and the majority of them are from different countries in Asia. Many international students choose Japan as a study destination because of world-class science and technology, fascinating nature and culture, convenient and comfortable living environment, and diverse international students, affordable academic fees, and employment opportunities after graduation. Next slide, please. What's more, the Japanese government is very much welcoming international students. They have set a target to increase the total number of international students in higher education from the current 200,000 to 400,000 by 2033. They also plan to increase the number of departments offering English taught bachelor courses from the current 86 to 1,200 by 2033. Next slide, please. Many of you may not be that familiar with Japanese universities, so I'd like to give you just a quick overview. There are more than 800 universities in Japan, and 86 are national universities, just above 100 are regional public universities, and there are more than 600 private universities. All bachelor programs take 4 years to complete. Most of the courses in the universities are taught in Japanese, and the academic year starts for those Japanese taught programs from April and finishes in March. However, there are an increasing number of English taught degree programs, which run from September to June. Next slide, please. It is important to understand that there are different admission processes to enter Japanese taught bachelor courses and English taught bachelor programs. And I would like to highlight these differences in relation to Cambridge qualifications. First, let's look at Japanese taught courses. To enter Japanese taught courses, Cambridge International A-Level will give students eligibility to apply to such courses. This is because the Minister of Education in Japan has now recognized Cambridge International A-Level as a qualification to apply to Japanese universities. It is important to know that most Japanese taught courses require applicants to take additional exams, such as EJU, which stands for the examination for Japanese university admission for international students. In addition, for Japanese taught courses, it is generally expected to submit the evidence of Japanese language skills at CEFR B2 level. Therefore, for those students who are interested in entering Japanese taught degree courses, IGCSE Japanese would benefit in a way that it will build strong foundation for students to study Japanese language at advanced level at the next stage following IGCSE. Now let's look at English taught courses. To enter English taught bachelor programs, most courses accept Cambridge International A-level as academic exam scores. Many universities expect 3 A-levels for admission. To enter English taught courses, Japanese language qualification is not a requirement, but strongly recommended to submit as additional application documents. This is because it could add competitiveness to the candidates during selection process. And for some universities, it could also support selection for scholarships provided by individual universities. After students enter the English taught courses, many universities require international students to take Japanese language classes in the first or second years. Cambridge IGCSE Japanese could give students credit to be offered for such compulsory Japanese language classes. So together with Cambridge International A-levels, IGCSE Japanese would give students advantage when they want to apply to English taught courses of Japanese universities. I would like to add that admission policies and procedures are different from university to university, so it is important to always check websites of individual universities. Next slide, please. I mentioned in my last slide that Cambridge International A-level qualifications are valued and well accepted by the English taught programs offered by Japanese universities. The leading universities such as the University of Tokyo, Tohoku University, Kyoto University, Waseda University, and more recognize Cambridge International A-levels. Please find out more which Japanese universities recognize Cambridge qualification in our recognition database, which can be reached by using the QR code on the slide. Next slide, please. Also, for your reference, I summarized what areas of subjects can be studied in the English taught courses of major Japanese universities. As you can see, most universities offer both science, humanities, and social sciences courses. Next slide, please. I would also like to add some information that would be useful to you and your students, which is about finance. Japanese universities are well known for offering high quality education for reasonable academic fees. Together with affordable living costs, the total spending will considerably less than some of the major study destinations. You can find the average annual academic fees and the monthly living cost on the slide. Next slide, please. What's more, there are various scholarship opportunities that students can apply to. This includes government scholarship and private foundation scholarships. The full list of scholarships has been published by one of the student support agencies in Japan, and you can find the link on my slide. With Cambridge IGCSE Japanese, we hope your students will gain access to these opportunities and study in Japan. Later, I will add a link to, on the chat box to our Cambridge International blog, which featured 2 Cambridge International students currently studying at a Japanese university. If you haven't read the article yet, I strongly recommend you take a look. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. Back to Faith.
Thanks very much, Aku. And thank you all for listening. We now have some time for questions. I've just had a look in the Q&A box and the chat. So we have 2 questions in the Q&A box. Do post any more questions that we haven't managed to answer either in the Q&A box or the chat. So the first question is around, we have someone is linked to, thank you, Robert Bright. We have a Chinese first language syllabus, and Robert is asking, when is the Japanese for first language learners coming? Thank you for your question. We did a lot of investigation work around which level of Japanese would be of most interest to our centres. We found that most schools were interested in foreign language or second language. So we've gone for foreign language as an initial qualification, but we base our decisions to introduce syllabuses partly on interest and partly on whether we think there will be enough entries to guarantee the reliability of our assessments. So we have to have a minimum number of entries to make sure that we are reliably assessing. So if there were enough interest for a first language Japanese qualification, we would investigate it. The methods for suggesting that are either via info@cambridge.com, so you can see the web. Sorry, yeah, you can see the email address there on the page. So please do submit a suggestion and any sort of thoughts and feelings you have around particular syllabuses there, or you can talk to your Cambridge representative in country about anything that you'd like introduced. So I can see there, so we have a question about first language Japanese. We also have a question around Korean as a foreign language. So again, it would be the same answer. Around if there were enough interest, then we would investigate whether we would have enough interest to reliably assess it. So please do submit any requests via that info@cambridge.org. We did have a look recently at Korean, and we found that though lots of students had a real interest in it and were studying it, there was less interest in actually accrediting it and actually being assessed in it. But I'm very happy to hear if that's not the case in your centre. So please do put any comments in the chat or send them through to that info box. It would be great to hear from you. So thank you. I can see there's a few more questions coming through. And I think some of them are being answered at the same time. Sarah, thank you for fielding a couple of questions. So I'll just read them out so that everyone's got access to them. So one of the questions was, where can we find the full sample papers? And Sarah has provided a link. Thank you very much, Sarah. And then we have a question open, will IGCSE Japanese progress to AS and A level in the future? That's a really good question, and one that has been submitted ahead of the webinar as well. At the moment, we don't have plans to introduce AS and A level. Ayaku has given us an overview of how the IGCSE might be used in progression conversations or in applications to university in Japanese. However, as with the Korean and with a first language Japanese IGCSE, if there were enough interest and entries were sufficient that we could reliably assess it, then we would look at that. So I think if we see a significant uptake of the IGCSE, we would always look at whether we can reliably provide the next level of qualification, because we do like to have the full pathway to make sure that students have got somewhere to go in their next studies. So thank you for that. We've got no open questions at the moment. We've got a couple in the chat. So a question around, could you tell me when is the assessment? Yes, it's June only. So we have 3 series at Cambridge. The Japanese will be available in June only. So first assessment, June 2027. And then, yeah, sorry, Sarah's already answered that one. And will you publish a teaching resource for this course? Again, it's a good question. There are no plans at the moment for our publishing partners to produce a textbook. And again, that's due to entries. If there was significant uptake, then we would talk to our publishing partners about supporting with a textbook. So we are providing additional support that doesn't take the form of a formal textbook via the School Support Hub. And again, if there's anything that you think you would find useful in delivering this course that sits outside of that textbook, please do let us know either via the chat or via that info@cambridge.org, and we can look at what more we can provide. And if there's something specific that people would find useful, we can look at whether that's possible. Are there any more questions? And Ayako has just posted the link in the chat that she referenced. All of the links in the PowerPoint in the slides will be made available to you when the slides are published, hopefully in the next week. And they'll appear on the School Support Hub, and you'll have access to all the links there. I'll also post a link in the chat of the School Support Hub so you can go in and have a look. If you don't have access to that already, if you're new to Cambridge or you've never used the School Support Hub, you can talk to your Cambridge contact in school. It's usually an exams officer or a head of centre who will be able to request a login for you. It does require a login. So please do speak to your exams officer or your head of centre if you don't have access to the School Support Hub, where all of that material will be available and the specimen papers and everything you might need to teach this. Okay, we've got 10 minutes left. If there are no further questions, I think my colleague Yongjia, it just has one question for you. So Yongjia is going to just put a brief poll on the screen, and we would ask you just to respond to it. We're just interested in how many of your students are interested in studying Japanese, really. You may not know at this particular point. You may think that, you may not be able to put a number to it, but at your best guess, if you could answer that question, that would be really helpful for us in planning for first assessment in 2027. Once you've answered that, and if there are no further questions, we'll close the webinar there. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. It's been really great talking about this syllabus, and we're really excited to work with you all on it. So thank you again. Take care.